Our prelude this morning is a French chanson by Gabriel Faure entitled Clair de Lune, or Moonlight. It is sung in French, and the translation is: Your soul is a chosen landscape, bewitched by maskers and burgomaskers, playing the lute and dancing and almost sad beneath their fanciful disguises. Singing as they go in a minor key of conquering love and life's favors, they do not seem to believe in their fortune, and their song mingles with the light of the moon, the calm light of the moon, sad and fair, that sets the birds dreaming in the trees, and the fountain sobbing in their rapture, tall, svelte amid marble statues. And now let us enter more deeply into our time of worship with the prelude.
Votre âme est un paysage choisi que vent charmant masque ses bergamasques. Je ondule et dansant et quasi triste seul déguisement fantasque. Tout en chantant sur le mon émineux, l'amour vainqueur et la vie opportune. Ils n'ont pas de quoi le bonheur, et le chanson se mêle au clair de lune. Au calme clair de lune, triste et beau, qui fait lever les oiseaux dans les arbres et sangloter d'extase les jeux d'eau. Les granges et roses vertes parmi les marbres.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Vertus and Eliza. And we open our service with these words from the Reverend Fulgence Ndagijimana, founder of the Unitarian Church in Burundi. When strangers meet, endless possibilities emerge, new experiences, new ways of understanding, and new ways of taking action. When strangers meet, each pays special attention to the other. Each is called to serve something larger than the self. Today, this morning, let us light the chalice for openness, for willingness to grow, for rich curiosity, and for common purpose. And I invite you to join me at home in lighting the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. We light this flame, enduring symbol of openness, compassion, and growth. And let us join in saying our words of affirmation adapted from Universalist minister L. Griswold Williams. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant.
Good morning, everyone. I love seeing your beautiful faces on my Zoom screen. I am Liza Earl Centers, Director of Lifespan Spiritual Exploration here at our church. Sometimes we call it LSE. And this month's worship theme for February is Beloved Community. I invite you to say that lovely phrase with me, everyone. Beloved community. Feel that in your heart. Last week in the pre-worship children's chapel, The children had great ideas in our brainstorm of what this phrase might mean. A place where all are welcome, said Clara. Avram looked at the word beloved and guessed, I think it is a place where you can be loved. Isn't that great? Yes, Avram, that is exactly what it is. And as Unitarian Universalists, that's what we try really hard to create. Beloved community, a place where each person can be loved for who they are, for how we are different as much as for how we are similar. And the differences can be celebrated, not hidden. Whatever your age or skin color, your gender, whether you were born in another country or speak a different language, rich or poor or in between, whether you move on 2 legs or in a wheelchair, that is beloved community. Now, the focus of this morning's worship is something called Beloved Conversations. And this is a program offered by the Meadville Lombard Theological School. It's a program to help congregations, mostly Unitarian Universalist ones like ours, move toward truly being a beloved community. And over 30 of us from our church enrolled for an intensive course of study from October to January. Around 200 congregations had participated in the in-person program before COVID, but this was the first time for our church and the first time they've offered it virtually. Like some of the kids or teenagers watching, our lessons were online, like yours were this past spring, and some of you continue. Our small group discussions and our large group discussions were online. Beloved Conversations has 3 different learning stages over several years, and you start with the within phase. This is the work that each of us needs to do inside our own hearts and minds, and even in our bodies. One goal of the within phase is to have each person by the end feel that they have good practices going forward for sticking with sometimes uncomfortable but important conversations. During the course of this worship service, you'll hear from a handful of us who were part of the program. One of the things I personally really appreciated is learning some ways to calm my body when a conversation is getting a little uncomfortable or maybe a lot uncomfortable. I'm not talking about inappropriate conversations, which really should stop, but rather just conversations where I have just a different perspective. It might be talking about race, or maybe it's talking about the president, or just talking with my family about what behaviors feel safe to do with friends during COVID and what ones don't. Those can get sometimes intense. When I sense there's different opinions or strong opinions, sometimes my heart starts to beat faster. Does this sound familiar to any of you? My chest can start to tighten and I'm not breathing deeply. Sometimes I turn as red as a beet and I find myself in a panicked space, like I want to run away, even though there's really no danger. These are conversations that I care deeply about, and often with people I care deeply about and feel safe with. Yet I find myself wanting to escape. So I really appreciated that Beloved Conversations had an entire lesson. The second lesson, at least for the white folks, was on how to lean into discomfort. They taught me to welcome it because it's often a sign that we're stretching our hearts bigger and getting close to some rich new learning. I now am doing a better job of noticing the first signs of discomfort, and I can either choose to move into that space of learning or to flee it. But I've learned techniques to help settle my body, and these help me do a better job staying in the calm part of my heart and mind, which then lets me listen with more openness and curiosity. and respond with more care and creativity in what I say back. So for me, getting my breath deeper is my first step. I invite you all to do that with me right now. Just take in a big, deep breath slowly. Hold it for a moment there, and then slowly start letting it out. Try that again with me. Breathing in slowly. And rocking is actually really grounding. So you may see that I have brought in a rocking chair from our sanctuary this morning. I invite you to rock with me for a moment, either forward and backward, like I am doing, or you can just rock gently side to side. Humming is a great tool for settling. Just anything that lets you feel yourself in your own body in this moment and place in time. One that you can do if you need to be a little less obvious is fun. You could do this if you were in a staff meeting and didn't really feel like rocking back and forth. I call it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it uses the 5 senses. We can do it together right now, briefly, and maybe I'll talk you through it and then I'll guide you through it. So I'll be an example. 5 is for 5 things that I can see, and don't overthink it. So I see a green rug, I see a gray sky, I see a red box, I see a wooden floor, and I see a piano. 4 is for things that you can feel. Again, I'm going to guide you through your own space in a moment, but 4 things I can feel: my fleece pants, the coolness of my computer, I feel the fabric of my jacket, and I feel my hair. 3 is for, 3 things that I can hear. I hear my own voice speaking. I hear a low hum, maybe of the baseboard heat. And I hear a clock ticking on the wall. All this time you want to keep that breathing going. 2 is down to 2 things that I can smell. So maybe I smell the hand soap I used this morning and this wonderful smell of our beautiful church building. It's a great smell. And finally, down to 1, something that you can taste. And if you don't have any coffee to sip or breakfast right in front of you, you could just think of something you tasted recently, which for me was a strawberry smoothie for breakfast. So we will just try that now. I'll guide you through a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've put it in the chat, but I'll talk you through it. So I invite you to look around your space and either say out loud or in your head 5 things that you can see. Great. Now, if one of your senses is limited, you can just focus on the ones that you do have. We'll move on to 4 things that you can touch near you. Go ahead, reach out your hands or feel yourself in your seat. Remember to keep that breathing going. Great. Now, 3 things that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. And finally, 1 thing that you can taste or that you recall tasting. And it's not a test. It's okay if you couldn't do each of those numbers. If you do those things when you are starting to feel overwhelmed in a conversation, you're basically helping your body be present and realize that you are safe. I think the idea is to just not let your head win out and convince you that you are in danger. Because remember, it's just a conversation. You're fine. In fact, it just might be a beloved conversation leading us to a more beloved community.
I'm Kelly Walker Hart, interim music director, and I've had such a fun couple of weeks with the choir working on this next song for you all, and I think they've had fun too. It's sort of playful. It's called Love Is, but there's a little nod to a Gregorian chant, which is, you'll hear Ubi Caritas, and then a nod to the Beatles, All I Need Is Love. So that part you'll hear over and over again, and I invite you to sing with us when you hear that. It goes like this. Love, love, love. All we need is love, love, love. All we need is, and then it just keeps repeating, love, love, love. All we need is love, love, love. All we need is, so that's kind of a mantra that you can sing. And as you've heard me say before, sometimes singing or hearing a song in your head can also help us deal with stress. But this is our gift to you today for Valentine's Day. So enjoy. Love Is.
Love is, love is, love is love. Love is, love is, love is love. Oh, love is love, is love, is love. Oh, love is love, is love, is love. Oh, love, love, love. All we need is love, love, love. All we need is love, love,
As Liza mentioned earlier in the service, about 30 of us within this church community participated in beloved conversations over the last 3 months, including myself. Although I have participated in similar kinds of programs in the past, it was so valuable to me to dedicate both the time and emotional space to my own development and self-care. The program tailored its learning goals and curriculum to address the spiritual needs of both white folks and Black, Indigenous, and people of color in this broad work of embodying racial justice as spiritual practice. Today, you will hear 3 reflections from fellow church members who participated in both tracks of the program: Unlearning/Learning for Liberation, which was geared towards white participants, and Gathering Ourselves, which was geared towards BIPOC participants. And first, I would like to invite Leslie Parr to share with us her reflection.
Good morning. Austin Channing Brown, author of I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness, writes, oftentimes we say you gotta be in proximity with each other. You gotta be friends. You gotta sit at a table together. White folks need to take a step back instead of seeking out that friend, that person who's going to teach them. They should seek out education, books, spaces where people of color are willing to talk, the lecture, the class, the book studies, the spaces where people of color have already agreed to share their stories with you. That way, when you come into proximity with people of color, you will have a larger foundation to build a relationship as opposed to using me as your teacher. The goal of our friendship shouldn't be for me to be your teacher. It should be me as your friend. For me, this captures the essence of beloved conversations. As I've participated in the program, seeking the education, readings, poems, films, as well as meeting with my pod, members of our UCM congregation, I've reached insights about racial justice. Among them, my white perspective is so powerful, it diminishes my life in ways I don't even recognize. I was in a Burlington market recently when an African-American man reached out. "You're from Montpelier." I turned to him. I didn't recognize him. He reminded me that he had once lived on my street. I paused. How could I not know him? I asked about his family. Now I remembered his younger brother had been a friend of my daughter's. The memory of the boy who became this man emerged. "How good to see you. What are you doing these days?" I asked. He said, "I've worked at the airport, but right now I don't have a job." "I hope that changes," I said. "It's so good to see you." We parted. How could I have forgotten this neighbor of years ago? This might have been a joyful moment of reconnection. And I wondered about what it is like to be unemployed, Black, in Burlington, Vermont, in the middle of a pandemic, and all the rest. It shook me up. So what, you might ask, and how does this relate to beloved conversations? And I respond, how many times have I filtered out people and experiences because of my world made by whiteness? I shared this story with my pod. We are speaking uncomfortable truths within a comfort zone that has grown wider by learning and trusting. We've been reading the books, seeing the films, enjoying the poetry, art, and music offered in the beloved conversation. This influences my encounter in Burlington. I hope by digging deep these days, I will be breaking the bounds of whiteness for the larger truths.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for sharing your truth with us and your experience. Now we'll be hearing from Jeremy Beaudry.
Thanks, Joan. Good morning. My participation with the Beloved Conversations program has been an important step for me in my journey from being comfortably and complacently not racist to being proactively anti-racist. The curriculum resources and the rich discussions in the Learning Pod group helped me become more aware of my position and privilege as a white person, as someone who daily reaps the benefits of the status quo of white supremacy in our society. My Learning Pod included folks from other UU congregations living in New England and as far south as North Carolina and South Carolina. This offered a wonderful opportunity to hear quite different perspectives on the resources and discussion topics. These 90-minute conversations held every few weeks were, for me, the most rewarding part of the program. Our group quickly built trust and comfort enough to share our questions, concerns, mistakes, and insights about our individual experiences of racism, whiteness, and white supremacy. The program covenant challenged me to sharpen my listening skills. And with conscious practice and intention, I learned how to be a better listener, to listen to others without judgment and without the intent to convince others of my point of view. I found that as I deepened my ability to listen in the Learning Pod conversations, the purpose of how I listened matured. I was listening to learn, listening to reflect and grow. I probably remarked to my new friends every pod conversation on some small epiphany I had regarding my evolving sense of my white male identity and how I relate to BIPOC individuals. My deepened practice of listening connects to another important lesson from Beloved Conversations about how I intend to show up in spaces where different identities are present. The key question I came away with is this: what does it take for others to trust me? Specifically, how do I build trust with BIPOC folks who have every reason to not trust me as a white man? Something I heard from more than one of the featured BIPOC speakers and authors in the program is how frustrating it can be to collaborate with white people, even well-intentioned white people perhaps, in racial justice movements because of our reluctance to let BIPOC folks lead, to follow them, and to do what is needed and asked of us. We white folks, and this is me, like to do what we think they need, or what we think we have expertise in contributing, or because we value one kind of labor over another. In practice, this means that if a BIPOC-led group needs volunteers to help with things like childcare or preparing food, then that is what I will show up to do to build trust with them. I love thinking about how we might do this work together in our UCM community, in Montpelier, and in the wider Vermont community. The Beloved Conversations program and our own newly formed UCM Racial Justice Group are awesome opportunities to get engaged in this work. I love thinking about how we might come together to build a community of critical friends and neighbors who are committed to being anti-racist in our values and in our actions. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Jeremy. And our final church member reflection comes from Shalini Surya Narayana. Shalini couldn't be with us live this morning, but she has recorded a reflection that I will share with you now.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shalini Surya Narayana, and I'm so sorry that I couldn't join all of you live today, but Reverend Joan was kind enough to think of this option of my sharing via a pre-recorded video. First, I want to say that I'm so grateful to have been given the opportunity to participate in the Beloved Conversations course. It has been a powerful experience for me in several ways, and I'd like to share just a few of them with you. One part of the program was an option for us to select one or more critical friends with whom we could discuss the readings, homework, our ideas about the course, and so on. I selected 2 people, my childhood and still best friend of over 40 years, and my oldest niece, whose middle name is actually Shalini. I'm really close to both of them, and we ended up having bi-weekly conversations, usually for about an hour each time. Both of them were wonderfully dedicated to helping me explore my thoughts and feelings and reactions. And as a bonus, our conversations led me to learning more about their thoughts and feelings and reactions too. So by the end of the course, my relationship with both of them grew much deeper and stronger. I think they felt honored that I chose them, and we all became so much closer. That alone made me feel like this course was priceless. And there were still more reasons that the course ended up becoming so important to me. Another aspect was the homework assignments. They focused on helping us to get to know our family history better, to explore our roots. One way I did this was by contacting my relatives back in India. Although I was afraid my calls and questions might seem like an imposition, we had some great conversations. My aunts and uncles seemed thrilled to recall stories from the old days, and this led to our creating a family WhatsApp group. So this is where we put an application on our smartphones so that we could call or message or text each other easily. Next thing I knew, we were contacting each other multiple times a week, apparently with no end in sight because we're still going strong. The class homework turned out to be a wonderful vehicle for me to get closer with my extended family, which is yet another invaluable benefit to my participating. Lastly, being in the BIPOC group, that's Black, Indigenous, and People of Color group, meant that for a change, not only was I not the only brown girl in the room, but everyone in the room was a person of color. I can't even describe to you what that feels like after living in Vermont, where I spend pretty much every waking moment 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, being one of very few people of color in the room, if not the only person of color in the room, when I'm at work, in a meeting, at church, in a restaurant, at a social gathering, when I go to the movies or my doctor's office, pretty much everywhere. So having the benefit of this kind of special time with a group of people who could easily understand how I felt and who could relate to me, and I could relate to them in ways that just allowed our conversation to be so much more than just words that we spoke. It was almost therapeutic. The feeling of the comfort that a person gets when you're surrounded by other people who are just like you is something that I bet most people in the majority take for granted. I felt really blessed to have that time with my BIPOC cohort. The experience made me realize also that I need to find ways to have more of that in my life. Overall, I was so happy to have been part of this initiative. And although there were moments where I didn't feel like I had the time for the homework or the pod meetings or the critical friends calls, I'm already thinking of doing it again for the next class. It was really worth the time commitment. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope for those of you who have an interest in growing and expanding your knowledge in terms of racial equity, that you'll consider joining one of these or other learning opportunities that are hosted by our church, and maybe I'll even get to see you there. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you, Leslie, Jeremy, and Shalini for sharing your thoughts and reflections with us. Let me close by saying that living into the spiritual calling of embodying racial justice in our lives isn't always easy, as the reflections that have been shared today illustrate. There can be uncomfortable moments and hard moments of reckoning. I personally am often challenged by the feeling that I'm not far enough along, that I should have more of myself figured out by now. Participating in beloved conversations helped me to be more gentle with myself and to accept where I am and who I am as an Asian American, Filipina, daughter of immigrants, woman of color. As a minister living and serving in a largely white community, as the spouse of a white Vermonter of European settler colonial ancestry, and as the mother of a biracial child. It's complex, and this life is full of ever unfolding opportunities for growth and change. So while the journey of embodying racial justice can be difficult, there can also be deep joy in moving closer yet to liberation for ourselves and for others. Know that you are invited to be a part of this journey wherever you find yourself on the path. There is more to learn, and there is more love to cultivate for our own sake and for others.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. Yes, we can. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Sing it like you mean it. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Our generosity is a form of love and gratitude. Our gifts, freely given, help us to practice Unitarian Universalism throughout our and beyond our congregation. Each month through the UCM Community Pouch Program, we share part of our collection with an important church fund or community organization aligned with our values. And during the month of February, our community pouch recipient is the Central Vermont Showing Up for Racial Justice, or Central Vermont Surge. And you can find information about Central Vermont Surge on our website. Your contribution to the community pouch this month will directly support this work. And you can make a financial contribution today by donating online, going to ucmvt.org and click donate to UCM. There are options to contribute to the general fund, which supports the general operating budget of the church, keeps the bills paid, and the community pouch, or both. You can also mail a check or to the church, and you can use our text to give option. So simply text message with the word give to 802-266-4848 and follow the instructions sent to you. We are so grateful to each and every one of you for your generosity in its different and many forms. And as we draw this service to a close, we extinguish the chalice and carry within each of us its healing flame, the warmth of community, and the spark of hope into the days and weeks ahead. And as we do so, let us join in saying the mission statement. We welcome all as we build a loving community to nurture each person's spiritual journey, serve human need, and protect the earth, our home.
And now we close our service with these words from Andrea Hawkins-Kamper. May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now, to be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience.
A small piece by Bela Bartok from his collection for children. I chose it partly in honor of Chick Corea, a wonderful pianist, composer, and educator who died last week. Chick Corea is most famous as a jazz pianist, but he also loved and played music from the classical repertoire and cites Bartok as one of the composers who had a great influence on his own work. In fact, he wrote a collection of songs for children as well. I also chose it because music like this seems to me like a conversation. You're taking an idea, taking it apart, and looking at it from different perspectives. So here it is.